wasn't saying anything of note, but that's fine. Yeah, the rules are on the back, if you didn't hear me. So we'll crack on with the main debate, and we'll start with Hasan al Habib. Hasan al Habib is a PhD student in oncology at Downing College. He was formerly at Oxford University, for which he's been forgiven. He's well known on the Cambridge stand-up scene, performing in many smokers. Hasan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Someone mentioned to me just before I came out today that I'm already one of the best speakers to have spoken at the Cambridge Union this year, simply because I've turned up. Everyone knows that at Cambridge, there's a small number of people who have a delusional sense of self-importance. Now, as we all know, the majority of these are elected to the Cambridge Union Committee, and the rest of them are speaking at tonight's debate. This house believes that the world is beyond parody. What do we mean by that phrase, beyond parody? Is it something geographical, like how Girton is beyond Cambridge? Perhaps it's something more abstract, like how a well-paid career is beyond arts graduates. Or maybe it's something in terms of difficulty, like how getting into drama school was beyond everyone involved with Cambridge Theatre. Well, spicy joke, that one. Very spicy. Very spicy. The meaning I will be inferring from tonight's proposition is that there are some things that are so ridiculous in the world, especially in politics, that we actually cannot mimic or make fun of them because they are already so ridiculous. But counterintuitively, I will begin by listing some things which are very much within parody, okay? So the first is obvious, oneself, right? You can always make fun of yourself. I often make fun of myself for my romantic life. There are some problems associated with that. For example, I am extremely picky, very picky. I mean, not just in terms of romance. I remember when my younger sister was born and they brought her to the house, I was just like, no, it's not going to work. Honestly, this is not going to work. Do you know why? Because we're at different life stages. It's just not ideal. I don't think I've done too badly romance-wise. I'd probably say I've had the same number of girlfriends as I've got A-levels, which is quite tragic because I did the IB. Those of you that did the IB know that it's its own personal tragedy as well, but that's another story. You can also make fun of culture and background, especially if you do it in a self-aware way, right? I'm from Birmingham, as you can probably tell from my thick accent. My parents decided to send me to a private school because they were told that if I still had a Brummie accent after 7 years, they'd get their money back. That was a deal I signed up to. I would ask that none of you say to a Brummie, oh, you're from the north. I am not from the north, okay? There's nothing, I don't mean any offense to anyone that is from the north, but I'm not from the north. When Margaret Thatcher died, I was sad, right? That's a joke, of course. I go to King's. We actually had the day off when Thatcher died, I know. But when I tell people I'm Brummie, they usually say, oh, you don't sound like you're from Birmingham, to which I always say the same thing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, because it's a horrible accent. It sounds really, really stupid. And I think one of the main reasons that is because we don't really have someone famous, a celebrity, that makes it sound intelligent and incisive. You know, I'll give you an example. Jamie Carragher, legendary legendary former Liverpool FC player and current analyst on Sky Sports, I think does a brilliant job of making scouts seem really intelligent. That move, scored 3-5-2 by Jurgen Klopp, absolute genius. What it's done is, it's allowed Trent Alexander-Arnold to just slot back on the right side of two centre-back. It allows your midfield to push forward, help support Roberto Firmino. I remember I did that Scouse impression in my lab once, and my lab manager, who's South African, came up to me and said, "Hey, Hasan bro, I told you, eh? No more speaking Arabic in the lab." My third example of things that can be easily parodied in Cambridge is, of course, Cambridge itself and its students. I'm a medical scientist, and I'm absolutely fascinated by reflexes in human biology. So there's the classic, you've got the knee reflex, you tap the knee there, the lower leg will flick up. You've got the forearm reflex, you tap this tendon here, the forearm will flick up. You've got the college porter reflex, which is when a college porter sees a black student and says, "You remember this college? Can I see some ID, please?" It's like a reflex action, just straight away. I used to go to Oxford, to Balliol College, and I remember one of my friends back home had said, "Hasan, you go to Balliol? What, isn't that one of the ones that's really hard to get into?" I'll say, "You're damn right it's hard to get into. It takes me 10 minutes. It's like airport security there." Speaking of obnoxious and arrogant people, that brings me very nicely onto the subject of students at King's. Apparently, someone in the JCR recently suggested that they should have a motion. This JCR does not recognize the totalitarian state of Israel, which begs the question: do you actually think Israel gives a fuck? But there are some things that you simply cannot make fun of, and such things seem especially prevalent in politics. Conservative American political pundit Tomi Lahren said that, and I quote, "Black Lives Matter are the African-American version of the KKK." Tomi is one of the most successful and well-known political pundits on American television, and yet, when I do my routine about how the Conservative Party should be known as white ISIS, I get complaints. Double standards, double standards. Comedian Norm Macdonald says that the best joke conceivable would be one where the setup is exactly the same as the punchline. Usually, in political satire, the satirist describes something that a politician has said or done and then mocks and parodies it. Speaking on the topic of Hurricane Florence, which caused $16 billion worth of damage and claimed 53 lives, Trump said, and I quote, "This is a tough hurricane, one of the wettest we have ever seen from the standpoint of water." I genuinely don't think there is anything that anyone can say that can make that funnier. If a Donald Trump impressionist had said that before Trump had, it wouldn't seem credible and just wouldn't be funny as a result. And that's why I believe the world is beyond parody. And I'll end by saying the same thing that my dad said to the Home Office after they accepted his application to seek asylum from Iraq. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Hasan. We move on now to our second speaker and our first speaker on the opposition, Joy Hunter. Joy is a third year at Queen's College studying education. She's a stalwart of Cambridge Comedy Nights and was an MC at 3 Footlights nights up at the Edinburgh Fringe. Joy, the floor is yours.
Hasan, I take your Trump impression, I raise you. Oh, fuck, I can't see the lines. First and foremost, I'd like to start by saying a massive, fantastic, superb thank you. It is an honor to be here at the Cambridge Onion. but I'm afraid I'm going to have to declare this debate fake news. Ooh, I'm the Cambridge Union, and I think the world is beyond parody. Cambridge Union? More like Cambridge shit. Now that, ladies and soft boys, is an example of some parody. Now, the quality of that piece of parody is debatable, but for some it's unsophisticated, others perhaps it's simply too cutting. But that is an example of parody. That example of parody that I've just thrown down before you, be it shit or not, is parody nonetheless. I have said some parody. Thus, parody is happening in the world. The parody may not be functioning well, but that does not necessarily mean that the world is beyond parody, and that parody can never find a useful and meaningful place within the world from which to parody from. Had a glass of wine at dinner. Parody, parody, parody. I've been thinking about parody in preparation for this speech for almost 15 minutes now. And I'll level with you, the word's lost all meaning. It kind of sounds like party? But has the meaning of the meaning lost meaning? And what about the word? Yes, the world is fucked. There is too much information spewing out at us every second that sometimes it feels like we can barely keep up with it, let alone find time to parody it. Sometimes society today feels like you're just going from shitstorm to shitstorm, from excrement tornado to turd cyclone. But how do we provide shelter from this fecal tempest? How else, I say, other than laughing in its face? When I'm lacking some pep in the old step, I simply remind myself of the powerful women who continue to make me laugh through the intense and devastating pain of just being alive. Let me give you some examples. From this morning's podcast, The Guilty Feminist, that came out this morning, comedian Bridget Christie discussed Brexit. She said, and I quote, "The Brexit negotiations continue to drag themselves along like a rectal prolapse on a tortoise. For that is what we are now, a hemorrhoid hanging out of the back of the EU's bumhole. And what Michel Barnier has to decide is whether to gently push us back in using creams, or whether to cut off our blood supply. Either way, nobody is happy." Strong and poignant words of parody from Christie there. Another prime example of comic relief is the parody women's magazine Reductress, which features such hilarious headlines as "Quiz, is it seasonal depression or just an especially squalid chapter of American history?" Or 4 liberating haircuts that will make him say, "I liked your hair better long." And finally, my personal favorite, 8 guys on Tinder that have been to Machu Picchu but never to therapy. I put it to you with these examples that parody is alive and well. I put it to you that if you believe that the world is beyond parody, you are simply looking in the wrong place. I also put it to you that it might not be a coincidence that this House would put forward such a motion now that parody is being harnessed to tackle oppressive power structures that this House benefits directly from, such as the patriarchy. Perhaps you believe that the world is beyond parody simply because, for the first time in your sad lives, you are the one being parodied, and you quite simply cannot handle the bants. Perhaps you believe the world is beyond parody because you are not in on the joke. We are not all living in the same world. Just because one form of parody doesn't fit all audiences doesn't mean that it isn't valid if it provides relief to a particular community. Therefore, how can one individual person ever be qualified to comment on whether or not the entire world is absolutely beyond parody or absolutely not beyond parody? This is far too reductive. It is a false dichotomy. I'm really milking this, aren't I? And I detest false dichotomies. For me, that is black and white. It's a thinker. The proposition are performing a kind of self-parody simply by having the audacity to defend the argument that the world is beyond parody. It makes me feel violently sick to see comedians complaining that the world is beyond parody. Bro, isn't that your entire job? Perhaps it's time that instead of complaining to these so-called comedians should sit down and get out, because clearly they are lacking in creativity. The phrase, shit or get off the pot, feels relevant here. Oh, I'm going to be more than a minute. If the proposition feel that they can no longer shit out any parody about anything in the world that is worth any merit whatsoever, I suggest that instead of foolishly and defensively proclaiming that the pot is the problem, that the pot, brackets world, is beyond shitting in, they merely need to vacate the pot in order to make way for new innovators of parody to take their rightful place upon it, where they can proceed to curl one out, metaphorically. The proposition that the world is beyond parody is just the kind of outrageous statement that reminds me of what that twat said all those years ago. Everything that can be invented has been invented, a phrase uttered by Charles Holland Jewell, United States Commissioner of Patents in 1902. The first aircraft was invented in 1903. The reaction the world took to this statement wasn't to immediately pause all innovation. Instead, it ignored it and continued to invent all kinds of new shit. The aircraft, tights, 2 world wars that tore apart the fabric of Western society, the Dorito, the internet, the heeled trainer, and now neo-fascism. To make a joke about someone takes their power away. Let me finally paint you a picture. You're back in primary school and the coolest group of girls are giggling together in the corner. Perhaps they have groovy chick lunchboxes that you never had. All the cool girls whisper something and suddenly burst out laughing. They all go, so you go, what's so funny? And they go, excuse me, that's actually a private joke. You're not going to get it, you just wouldn't understand. Let's use parody against people like Trump as a private joke that they can never be in on. Let's make Trump feel like a little girl with a Fireman Sam lunchbox. I just wanted to fit in. In sum, laughter, parody, and comedy connects us all in opposition to the very people who are trying to divide us. It's a form of solidarity and validation. To laugh along at parody is to say, I get you and you get me. It gives us some hope in and faith in humanity as the rest of the world plummets further into a self-made circle of political neo-fascist hell whilst wearing heeled trainers. And I put it to you, if you still believe that the entire world is truly and absolutely beyond parody, then I suggest that it's high time that you turn that view around, do the hokey pokey and turn that view around, because that is what it's all about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joy. We move on now to a round of floor speeches. So if anyone wants to speak in proposition of the motion, anyone thinks the house is world, if everyone thinks the world is beyond parody, keep up your hand and the microphone will come to you. Does anyone want to speak in proposition of the motion? Anyone at all? Anyone in opposition?
Richard Parkins, Trinity College, again. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I do find it quite strange that in proposition of the motion we have 3 men, and in opposition we have 3 ladies. I don't know why men think that the world is beyond parody and ladies don't, but at the risk of introducing a serious note into what is, after all, supposed to be a comedy debate, I'm just not very funny. It is undoubtedly true that our present political leaders are beyond parody. But the world does not, fortunately, consist entirely of our present political leaders. And there are many things, very sad things going on in our world today, which we would not want to parody. Thank you.
Does anyone want to speak in abstention of the motion? Anyone at all? Anyone regained an enthusiasm for proposition? Good. Before I sound like an auctioneer, we'll move on to the the rest of the debate, and we'll move on to the second speaker on the proposition, Harry Gibbons. Harry Gibbons is a third-year historian at Selwyn. He's the editor of the Porter's Log, and he also runs a hotel for guinea pigs. So without further ado, Harry, the floor is yours.
Well, you know what, Charles, you missed something off there as well. Alongside those three, I'm also an expert in antiques. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I filmed an episode of Bargain Hunt, and I'll be back next term to sort of speak on the state of the antiques industry. But if there's one thing I learned at Bargain Hunt, it's that joining the Cambridge Union is not a bargain. Now, I suspect I am not the only person in this room that is suffering from a bit of the old buyer's remorse. Now, 2 years ago, I thought it would be a good idea to spend, 3 figures on joining what is essentially a sort of Westminster role-play community with a bit of sort of gratuitous black tie dress code. I wanted to wear the fleece, but they wouldn't let me, is essentially what I'm saying. I actually got an access membership of the union because it turned out that I don't share a name with either a biblical figure or a former Roman emperor, but still, I've only been to 3 events in my 2 years as a member of the union, so I've essentially paid 100 quid for Katie Hopkins to tell me how much she hates me and everything that I stand for. So it's a bit of daylight robbery, if I'm being honest with you, But anyway, this all changed about a week ago. Now, I don't know if you know Gabriel. He's the man in the kilt on the front row. I can only apologise if you do know him. But about a week ago, he invited me to his room, not like that, dirty bastards, to discuss taking part in this debate. Now, you go into Gabriel's room in Trinity, and the first thing that really strikes you is that it's underground. There is no natural light. That is how, apparently, members of the Union Committee prefer to live. So, you go in, and in the board sort of facing you, there's this, in the corner of the room sort of facing you, there's this board on the wall, and it's kind of like what you see in a crime drama. So there's all these pictures around the outside with members of the Union Committee on it. And then in the middle, it says, just in big sort of red letters, rivals. And some of these faces have got big red sort of crosses put over them, sort of like Syndrome's computer on The Incredibles, that sort of thing. And then in the other corner, sort of behind the door, and you don't notice this till you're a fair way into the room, but there is Nick Clegg's waxwork from Madame Tussauds. And I think that's why it's underground, because if you had it in direct sunlight, it would melt. So anyway, Nick's in one corner, the board's in the other. So anyway, I go into Gabriel's room, and he sits down. In fact, can we act this out? Can we bring a mic to Gabriel? He's done a bit of thespian before. He'll be all right. What? It's okay. He's not wearing a noticeable outfit, so we'll pick him out. So we go in, and it's all right. I'm going to give you the lines. Just read them out. So we go in, and he says,
Harry, we've got a problem.
And at this point, I'm a bit intrigued. I'm thinking, crikey, what's going on here? And he says to me,
none of the people who we said were going to come on the term card can actually make it.
I'm thinking, okay, it's fairly standard, but if this is the case, then what's the point in having a term card? And he says,
it's just a list of who might possibly be speaking at the union this term.
It's all right, well done. Now you've had a couple of glasses, but... So I think, okay, that's a bit dodgy, but we'll go with. So I say, you know what, Gabriel, who was meant to be on the term card then? Who was going to be speaking? So he gives me 3 names. He gives me...
Ronnie Corbett.
So that's the first speaker. Then the second one.
Ken Dodd.
And then last name, last but not least,
Barry Chuckle.
Honestly, I cannot believe you're laughing. Poor Barry. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, Mike. Do you want me to pass that back? It's all right. I should work here. Cheers. So yeah, the sort of general plus side of an invite to the union is that you do get a 3-course meal with wine. So I thought, you know what? This is a good moment. I'm going to get my money's worth. The downside is that as part of the deal, you've sort of got to make a speech, kind of try to be funny. And I'm looking around the room and I'm thinking, at this point, you're probably wishing that you'd stayed at home, watched a bit of telly, had an early night. As you can probably gather, I know how to have a good time. So we've probably got about 2 minutes that remaining, so let's get on with it. So I am editor of a magazine called The Porter's Log. You've probably never heard of it, but it's an online magazine, and we sort of take the piss out of Cambridge life. Well, that's what we're meant to do anyway, because it's actually not really possible anymore. Now, I've been in Cambridge for a couple of years now, and it's kind of gradually dawned on me over that time that Cambridge is actually a total fucking joke. And I've seen some things in my time in Cambridge, let me tell you. I've seen bomb disposal called out to deal with what turned out to be a suitcase full of library books. I've seen the Regis Professor of History knock over a pedestrian while riding his bike. And I've seen someone try to get through a police roadblock using a cam card. So, this is all true. This is all true. That's the scary bit. So I'm going to argue now very quickly, because I've realised there's not much time left, that Cambridge is beyond parody. What's that? 1 minute remaining, okay. So last week we wrote an article saying there was going to be a college for immature students, kind of 3 to 6-year-olds. So we made some sort of nice, fun jokes, like they're going to pay corkage on Capri Sun pouches, that there's going to be a massive increase in journalistic standards at the tab. And that was sort of a reasonable joke, right? Sort of light-hearted. It's never going to happen in real life, right? Right? Wrong. There is actually a University of Cambridge primary school. University of Cambridge Primary School. No word of a lie. What do you do at the University of Cambridge Primary School? Do you do the basic literacy tripos? Do you do an MPhil in plussing and minusing, or whatever you call it? Is there a head teacher? Is there a senior tutor? Can you play on the grass? Now, I don't know the answer to these questions. But the important thing is, I shouldn't be needing to ask, because it was a fucking joke. Not an actual primary school that actually exists. Now, also at the Porter's Log, we like to make jokes about shitty accommodation in various Cambridge colleges. So in 2016, we made a joke about archaeologists finding a sort of antiquated, draconian university in Cambridge, and it was going to have these cave dwellings and sort of makeshift furniture, impractical food preparation equipment. And then earlier this year, we made a joke about a college introducing human-sized pigeonholes for students to live in. Now, I don't know if any of you lot have been to Medwards recently, but it's as if they've gone, I see your cave dwellings and massive pigeonholes, and I raise you bunker bins. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen these, but they've essentially got these buildings, and I use the term lightly, rows on rows of these buildings, and they are essentially big cardboard boxes, and they're charging students to live in these. And this is the sort of dystopian shit that we'd have made jokes about in the past, but it is now an actual aspect of everyday life in Cambridge. And then in late 2015, moving on to sort of student journalism, because it's not just the university that are responsible for this bollocks, we did a cartoon. It was 2 students looking at a tab article. Which college is your college? It's sort of, you know, a joke about naff student journalism, listicles that don't really have much function. Kind of a safe parody, right? And then in Easter 2017, what did the tab publish? Which college is your college? The journalism that we need, but that we don't deserve. The best bit about it is they then accused us of plagiarizing their articles. That's our cartoon in December 2015 plagiarized their article in spring 2017, 18 months later. So anyway, I don't know. On the topic of student journalism, I know that you've told me to wrap up, but I'm going to carry on anyway. One of my favourite pastimes is vandalising the Wikipedia pages of notable individuals. All right, chill out. And organisations. As we've established, I don't waste my evenings. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I was editing the Wikipedia page of Varsity, and I was adding some new figures to a list of notable editors, sort of Robert Mugabe, Harold Shipman, Anjem Chowdhury, those sorts of people. Now, allegedly, and this is very much an allegation, just to clarify, at the same time, a member of Varsity's staff was editing the TCS Wikipedia page. This is TCS, the QSU-funded newspaper that reports on events in Cambridge a couple of weeks after they've happened. Now, I should add this as an allegation, but if I'm editing Varsity's pages as satire, I'm waiting for the weekend, what can I say? And Varsity are editing TCS's wiki pages, then surely that means that, Cambridge at least is beyond satire, it's case closed. So, to wrap up, sorry, I know I've gone a few minutes over, but the Porter's log basically is being run into the ground because Cambridge is impossible to parody. Any joke that we make nowadays becomes reality. Now, we're meant to be satirists, not psychics, but I would argue that in 2018 the boundary is increasingly blurred, and that's why, on a vaguely serious note, I would say that the world is beyond parody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those remarks. Harry, we move on now to our second speaker on the opposition, Emmeline Downey. Emmeline is, go as a note. Emmeline is a fine art historian at Untitled College. She's just returned from a sellout Edinburgh show, Manhunt, which received rave reviews. She is the archivist of the Cambridge Footlights Administrative Committee, but she's not here in the capacity of Emmeline Downey. No, she is going to be playing a character tonight. That character's name is Gail Summerfield. So, Gail, the floor is yours.
Oh, God, I'm well enough, actually. Sorry, that's so kind. Oh, that is kind. Sorry, God, I haven't had a response like that in ages. Not since I gave that keynote speech at Nelson Mandela. Sorry, shouldn't name drop. At his funeral. That is so kind, honestly. Oh, God, where do I begin? Right, anyway, hello. My name's Gail. How are we all today? How are we tonight? We well? Okay, great stuff. Remember, we're not good, are we? We're not good. Superman does good. We do well. Remember that. All right, lovely stuff. You do look well, actually. You do look well. I'm busy saying that. You could have an undiscovered tumour. Sorry. Okay, something to think about. Right, let's get cracking. Lovely stuff, my darlings. Okay, cutting to the quicks. Who am I? I'm Gail Summerfield, all right? I'm well famous, if I do say so myself. I'm an Agony aunt. Okay, I'm an Agony aunt. I've been working for the Milton Keynes Citizen for 18 years now. And I don't think it would be an overstatement to say the good people of Milton Keynes would be lost without me. So you've got to back yourself in this life. That's one thing I've learned. So the union came to me with a problem. I've come here with an answer. That's how this works. All right, darlings? Simple. Chalk and cheese. Let's get on. Okay, this house believes the world is beyond parody, all right? Mull it over. This house believes the world is beyond parody. Right, okay. I'm going to come out and say it like, what's parody? We don't know. I've had a think. I couldn't come up with an answer. But I'm here to say I'm Gail Summerfield and the kids are all right. Okay, let's get cracking. Okay, so what makes me qualified, darlings, to give my tuppence on such an issue? I imagine you're asking this, all right? I'm not sure. I'm imagining. Let me tell you, I'm a woman for the masses. I'm a lady of the lamp. I'm self-appointed to most things, sure, but I do speak for the people. All right? I am neither Aldi nor am I M&S, okay? Tesco's through and through, lovelies. That's who you're dealing with. That's what makes me qualified. You know, you're listening to a woman who is, quite frankly, honest with you and brand loyal, all right? I mean, every little helps, my first words, honestly. You call me a liar, you're calling my mother a liar. My first words were every little helps. Okay. I'm 47. All right, I'm 47 years of age, but I'm most certainly still relevant. Ed Sheeran, Black Eyed Peas, let's get going. Okay. Right, So, listen up. What does beyond parody even mean? I fundamentally do not believe, can't see a bloody thing, that the world can be beyond anything. All right? You don't have to be Einstein to know that's not how time works. It's simply not. I think my issue with this comes from the fact that people are so quick to criticise and judge these days, to poke holes, all right, nitpick, find problems with everything. You know, so we've got, carbon emissions are killing the planet, Gail. Okay, you've got, we're facing the death of print media, Gail. You've got the number of children in poverty across the UK has surged by 100,000 in a year, Gail, right? So stop worrying. All right, and that's coming from me. I'm an agony aunt, that's coming from me. I love problems, it's in my nature, darlings, but I find myself giving out the same 3 pieces of advice time and time again. All right, listen up. Number 1, let's start using 111, the non-emergency number, more, all right? It's taxpayers' money. Listen to me, it's taxpayers' money, we're funding it, let's start using it. Straight out the gate, it's no nonsense. Number 2, live and let live. Say no more on that, that's what it is. Number 3, it is not possible, listen to me, it's not possible to fully domesticate a lemur, okay? Don't bother trying. No, honestly, don't bother trying. Been there, done that, got the postcard and the tetanus shot, all right? Don't bother trying. Little glimpse into the life of Gail there. Don't bother trying. But, okay, no, honestly, though, I draw your attention to point 2. Live and let live, all right? Another way of saying it, keep calm and carry on. Keep calm and carry on. There is a reason that lovely red poster is in every kitchen in Milton Keynes. Okay, there's a reason, my darlings. It's good advice. All right? There have been problems since the dawn of time. It's nothing new. Listen to me, it's nothing new. In fact, I believe we're bloody lucky to be in the here and now, quite frankly. Okay, right, think about, case in point, think about poor bloody cavemen. All right? They don't have sushi-itsu. They don't have the UK top 40. They didn't have none of that, did they? Come on. Every day we should be thanking our lucky stars, you kids, when you're sitting on your settee fiddling with your Nintendo box. You know, you're not bloody poor Ugg who's killed his first moose. He's having to tackle that to the ground. Meanwhile, his dad's trying to work out what happens when you put 2 pieces of flint together. You're bloody lucky. Okay, listen to Auntie Girl. You're bloody lucky. So, all I'm saying is it's all relative. Bear that in mind. I'm going to get it's a bit of an anecdote here. I'm going to get a bit sentimental. I'm always having this chat with my son, Stuart. So my lovely son, my son and manager, Stuart, he turns to me recently and he says, Mum, he says, none of the girls fancy me and I'm finding these feelings of rejection and loneliness to be quite overwhelming at the moment. And I say to him, Stuart, listen to me, Stuart, in 5 months' time you will have completed your MSc in computer science from Southampton Solent University. How many young men can say that? And he says to me, good point, well made, Mum. And I say, you're right, I'm a very good communicator, Stuart. But listen, the point of all this is to stress that the world is not beyond parody if you're able to constantly remind yourself of what you have, all right? And you just put to the side for like 1 quick minute the huge atrocities and miscarriages of justice. It's all about perspective. So, to be brutally honest, and I'm not having a go at the union because they just served me a very lovely dinner. Cheers, chaps. But this motion shocks me. It does. It shocks me to my core. In the 21st century, everyone is so time poor. I'm surprised people can waste valuable minutes worrying about the state of things, to be brutally honest. So, case in point, okay? My schedule for yesterday, 8:15. Put the kettle on. Eat a handful of raspberries, drink a cup of tea, read the Women's Weekly from cover to cover, all right? Cheers, darling. Thanks for that. I make a mental note to cut out the interview with Martin Clunes. He looks like a very interesting young man. 10:45, I take Michael Jackson, my Cocker Spaniel, out for a walk. 12:30, salmon paste sandwich. 1:15, I drive to the Centre MK and return a tie I bought for Stuart from House of Fraser because, as he rightly pointed out, the colour was too autumnal for him. He has a summer palette. God, he had his colours done. I completely forgot. Naughty mummy. 5 p.m, call Stuart. I have to talk to my baby every day. We set the world to rights. 6 p.m, take Michael Jackson out for his evening walk, cook some fish cakes. Okay, nothing new. All right, I'm not getting at anything new, but I'm saying this is important. This is my busy day. Where do I have time to be concerned about parody and all of this? Do you hear what I'm saying? Like, I'm busy. All right, 7:30, I'm watching my soaps. 8:30, I've got Slimming World. I've lost half a pound. Do you know what I mean? I'm busy. I've got things to think about. 9:30, I'm settling down to bed, sure, but actually I'm going to spend 15 minutes reading a chapter of The Lovely Bones, which I think will have a happy ending. So I've got a busy schedule. How do I do it? With some bloody difficulty, I'll tell you that much. But where in that jam-packed schedule do I have time to be thinking that my lot isn't good enough, all right? Now, okay, before I wrap up, I'm just going to make one, I'm just going to dip my toe into politics. Oh. Okay. I don't tend to get too involved, on the whole. I was a parish councillor for one term. Turns out I don't care about bins enough. Sue me. But hands on heart, okay? Hands on heart, I think we should be leaving Mrs. May alone for a while. I do. No, honestly, hear me out. She's got a lot on her plate. I take herbal sleeping pills, and I'm an agony aunt. She's going to be bloody busy. You know, how does she do it? I don't know. She said, also, I think she makes a lot of good points. She said a while back that there are boys' jobs and girls' jobs. Yes, there bloody are, okay? No, listen, you'll never catch me clearing out a gutter, and my husband knows to leave my orchid well alone. It's the way it works. Okay, you've got to get with the programme. That's not parody. It's the way things have always been and will always be. The world's going to hell in a handcart, is it? Well, I wouldn't be seen dead in a handcart. I'll work bloody hard for my BMW and I'll drive it to my bloody grave, okay? And that you can yeah. So, to conclude, no, the world's not gone beyond parody because everything's fine. At the end of the day, what is the world? It's a flat disc of rock with some sea that has some edges we haven't yet discovered, isn't it? So, sorry, loves, but you're listening to some harsh realities from Auntie Gail this evening. You've been dealt your hand in life, and you have to suck it up, all right? I mean, case in point, I'm thrice divorced, once annulled. I'm thrice divorced, once annulled. I once performed in Stars in Your Eyes as Dame Shirley Bassey, and they wouldn't broadcast the episode because I was too close to the real thing, okay? I've experienced some hardship, all right? But I, Gail Summerfield, am here to say that everything's A-OK. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gail. We're going to go now to a round of floor speeches. So even the last 20 minutes, somebody has suddenly had a flash of inspiration for the proposition. Could you put your hand up now? Does anyone think the world is beyond parody? Anyone had an equally strong flash of inspiration for... Oh, was there somebody? Was there somebody? Oh, good. Perfect. Can you say your name and your college first, please?
Caitlin Cashmore-Rich from Peterhouse. I've decided to bravely speak for the proposition when no one else would. Is the world beyond parody? I'm not 100% sure, so really should have been talking in abstention, but you know, there we go. Here I am. The world is quite big, isn't it? And I think we could say that the world is beyond parody just because it's so big. We can't parody the whole world at one time. We've got to do it in little bits. We have to break it up into chunks. I mean, you've all been doing that. No one's tried to do the whole world at once this evening. At all, yeah. Even the proposition have been doing some parodying themselves. They've parodied Cambridge, they've parodied themselves. But what they're saying is we can't parody the whole world at one time. Because it's bloody massive. Our heads would explode if we tried to make jokes about the whole world. It's too big. There's too much in it. It's too much. We can't do it. And that's really all I can come up with for the proposition. So good luck to their final speaker. I hope you can do a better job than me. That's it. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Has anyone had a flash of inspiration for the opposition? Anyone going to brave it? Oh, this is exciting. I'm going to go right close to me there, in the green. And we can do others as well.
Hi, I'm Isabella from Trinity. I'm going to try to be funny, which is probably going to be uncomfortable for you guys, but such is free speech. So I love Cambridge. I'm not from here. I know what you're thinking. Not from the south. I'm actually from Birmingham. Joking, I lied. I don't really lie often. Must be because I'm at the union. So I love Cambridge. And I feel like everyone here has such big brains, just walking around with like enlarged prefrontal cortexes. That and like the seasonal affective disorder or some variations of mental disorders. But that's perfectly normal. So I do take your point, and I believe that if the world would be beyond parody, like we in this room could at least attempt to parody the world, I also do think that we here at Cambridge would perfectly understand that the world is not beyond parody. I feel like all of us should perfectly understand this because, after all, everyone here, we're parodies of our LinkedIn selves. Think about that. Yeah, and I think that's all I have to say to the attractive ladies and gentlemen of the floor, audience members. I'm going to end off with what my mom would have said if she were to apply for asylum. Please call me. Thank you.
Do we have any abstainers? Does anyone want to abstain from the motion in question? Perfect, down here.
Hello, Gamble Matthews, St John's College, controversial. So I just want to make a point which I found quite unusual. So the proposition tonight is this House believes the world is beyond parody, but the proposition seemed to have talked about Cambridge being beyond parody, not the world. And what I think is quite odd is I'm obviously from the colonies, and when I think about what a Cambridge person would be, it would be a man, probably in tweed, or an evening in black tie. And the sort of person who thinks that, you know, if you walk past Homerton, you'll fall off the edge of the world. And that sort of seems to be what the perception these guys have got, is that the world is Cambridge, that Cambridge is the world. And I'm just a little confused if they're doing that on purpose to parody Cambridge, or whether they are actually beyond parody themselves because they've achieved that in their arguments. Thank you, that's all.
I always like having floor speeches, so if we'll try one more round. So does anyone want to speak in proposition of the motion at all? Anyone upstairs? I know there were some other people for op. Does anyone want to speak in op? Good. I'll go to the person nearest me. Yeah.
Right, free photograph, Gomble Keys College. Right, I've been thinking about this, and basically the motion is that the world is beyond parody. But if you think about it for a second, where did the word parody come from? The world. We made it on. It wasn't like Lance Armstrong on the moon or whatever. Like we came up with it here. So, like, if you think about it, the world can't be beyond parody because. Like the parody came from the world, it didn't come from like space. So on that grounds, really, if you think about it, the whole argument falls apart. And that's all really I've got to say. So thanks.
Thank you, Firuza. And we'll try one more for abstentions, just to be fair. Fantastic, efficient. We'll move on now to. Was there someone? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, abstentions. Okay. That's the most emphatic abstention. Right.
I haven't listened to... I haven't always been listening to the motions that have been set, but I have enjoyed the fantastic impressions. And I would ask that, can we have more fun debates at the Cambridge Union, because I really like to laugh, and it's quite heavy recently.
Yeah.
I'd love it if someone did more impressions and characters. Maybe I joined the wrong society. I perhaps should go to the Footlights or somewhere else. But yeah, that's my only point. Can we have more fun things, Mr. President? That's all from me.
Definitely.
Thanks, Charles.
Yeah,
cheers,
that's right. We'll look into it. We'll have a task force, a fun task force. Not sure those words have ever gone together before. But yeah, we can have more fun, maybe. we're definitely going to have more fun now when we move on to Ken Cheng. Ken Cheng studied maths at Homerton College, during which he became heavily involved in the Cambridge comedy scene. He dropped out to become a professional poker player. He won the best joke of the year at the Fringe Award at the Fringe in Edinburgh, and comes to us fresh from his show in London. Ken, the floor and the fun is yours.
All right, let's first establish, who am I to be talking about parody? What are my credentials? Well, I'm going to introduce myself, and I'm going to do it via the medium of my own social media. It's my Twitter. As you can see, I am blue tick verified. Impressive, huh? That doesn't necessarily mean I'm a good comedian. It just means I am who I say I am. So at least you can walk away from this debate knowing that no identity fraud has taken place. Next, we've got Tinder. Never be ashamed of your own achievements, people. If you got it, flaunt it. And finally, LinkedIn. As you can see, I take LinkedIn very seriously indeed. No parody in LinkedIn. Here are a few of my LinkedIn updates. Just a few of the updates I kind of like to do on LinkedIn. This is the kind of thing that you might get if you connect with me. And that's the kind of stuff. Twitter, on the other hand, rife with jokes. Got jokes like these. Just a very strong jokes. Jokes like this one. Good jokes. But I don't just do jokes. I do parody as well. I do satire. Go after all the world's most hated figures. For example, J.K. Rowling. Any fans of J.K. Rowling? Well, she recently got in trouble for casting Nagini as a Korean woman when obviously Nagini is a snake. You've lost the plot, Joanne. What's going on there? Anyway, that's inspired me to write my very own J.K. Rowling tweet. A bit of parody. It's going to take a while to read, but it's definitely worth it. But the problem is, people, the problem is that so many people thought this was real. A lot of people believed that J.K. Rowling would write this tweet in real life. We've reached a point where it's impossible to tell the difference. Reality has exceeded parody. I'll be honest, until a few days ago, I thought I was opposition. That's why I've written a lot of amazing parody, but started writing my speech, then I realized the error I had made. Had to flip-flop on all my viewpoints completely, turn my back on everything I believed up to that point. I'm like Nick Clegg in 2010. Lib Dems, an example of something that was much easier to parody back in 2010, much harder now, simply because it's very difficult to parody something which effectively doesn't exist. I'll be honest, not a big fan of this motion, not a big fan. It's a pretty difficult motion. By very nature, comedy is parody. By making any joke whatsoever, I'm undermining my own argument. In order to win, I'd have to do 10 minutes of zero laughs, which is not a concept I'm new to. But I've never done it intentionally. But it's very fortunate that during the course of writing this debate, I accidentally stumbled upon and ended up arguing a very different second motion. And that motion is, this house believes Cady Heron was a true villain of Mean Girls. And we'll get to that in a second, but you're getting 2 for 1. You're getting 2 debates for the price of 1. That's the best deal in the world. Obviously, you could get that by just going to another debate. That's how the union membership works. But still, 2 for 1, best deal in the world. You would know that if you were part of a little something called the Byron Burger Club. It's a very exclusive club. It's invite only. You get an invite if you sign up on the website. So do that. Once you're part of the Byron Burger Club, you'll get these emails occasionally. You get an email, treat a friend to a burger on us. 2 for 1 burger deal. Best deal in the world. Best deal in the world. It's even better than 50% off. You might argue 50% off is a better deal because then you have the option of going alone. But that's the key advantage of the 2 for 1 is that you have to take a date. So now I have a good excuse to ask out whoever I'm interested in at that point, and then they say no, and I end up going alone and eating 2 burgers. Best deal in the world. And what you haven't realized is that I just ended up sneaking in a secret third motion there. This house believes 2 for 1 burgers. You're getting 3 motions for the price of 1. That's even better than 66.6666667% off. That's a trick they don't tell you. Once you're up here, you can debate any motion you want. They can't stop you. You can debate any motion in the world. You can debate any motion in the world. Any motion in the world. And because I put this house believes, you all have to believe it as well. That's the notion of it. I personally don't believe that. I think that's disgusting. But it's the house that believes it. I'm opposition to that. I think the face of the new £50 note should be the Freddo Frog, because that's how much a Freddo will cost by 2020. Anyway, to understand parody, we have to go to the most famous parody website of the world, The Onion. Here, just a few recent, thank you. That's not going to be good for me, by the way. It's okay, we've got a few more pages, but it's fine. You know, people paid a lot of money. They might as well get their money's worth. You might look at these headlines from The Onion and think, these headlines, we've got a few headlines from The Onion, all good headlines. You might look at these headlines and think that The Onion, the parody is as strong as ever. Parody's going pretty well. But actually, all of these, real headlines. They're all real headlines. They all actually happened. How insane are these stories? They're so far beyond parody. The Vatican releasing a version of Pokemon Go called Jesus Christ Go. It's insane. Given the image of the Catholic Church, it's insane. There's no irony there. They're desperately trying to fix their own image by creating an app where children are lured to a specific location by various Catholic figures. There's no irony there. No irony. And the bride one's insane. Secretly fattening up their bridesmaids. Who does that? Who's that? But do you know who else secretly fattened up her enemies? That's right, it's Cady Heron. She's a psycho, that Cady Heron. It's straight out of the playbook of Machiavelli, to be honest. After all, it's Machiavelli that said the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. That's exactly how Cady took down Regina. Use the people around her, or as Cady refers to them, quite inappropriately, army of skanks. Way to slut shame, Cady. Not a nice person. True villain of the Mean Girls. Anyway, I'll get on to the main debate now. The world is fucked right now. Let's go with the obvious. Let's go with the obvious things. Trump is president. James Corden has his own chat show. A lot of people unqualified for their jobs. It makes me so angry, even saying that name, James Corden. What even is the point in carpool karaoke? You've just taken, whose idea was to take a super talented musician and pair them up in a duet with James Corden? That's like having a threesome with the most attractive person in the world and James Corden. But we can't parody these figures because whatever we write, we can't match up can't match up to what they do themselves. That's a problem with the world. Every news story is depressing in an increasingly absurd way. Sometimes I have the urge to just lock myself away from all and do nothing but play The Sims, because that's the only way I'll ever be able to afford my own house. Everything's full of plastic these days. Oceans full of plastic. Our fish are full of plastic. Even our bodies full of plastic. But do you know who else was plastic through and through? That's right, Cady Heron. In the words of Janice Ian, you're plastic, cold, shiny plastic. What else is a problem? Cultural appropriation, big problem these days. Big problem. For example, we're all currently appropriating Russian culture by having all our elections rigged by Putin. Speaking of rigged elections, Spring Fling Queen election, rigged, I say, rigged. Or at least it's evidence that democracy simply doesn't work. To quote Cady herself, half the people in this room are mad at me, and the other half only like me because they think I pushed somebody in front of a bus. That's called fascism. That's exactly how Trump got elected. Half the country hate him, the other half are fascists who respect the use of political violence. Again, another quote of hers, limit does not exist. You might think she was talking about some harmless mathematical equation, but actually she was talking about the limits of her own power. We essentially replaced one dictatorship for another. My point in all that is that evil comes in very different forms. It comes in very different worlds. That's why our world sucks. We let evil flourish because it comes packaged in much popular forms. We go with what's popular. Evil can only succeed through its own popularity. And it has, to the point that we're way past parody now. We can't parody any of these things. We can't parody the plastic in our bloodstreams. We can't parody the increasing lack of housing and infrastructure. And we can't parody evil. The only way to combat evil is to recognize it before it reaches a position of absolute power where it becomes impossible to stop it. I am, of course, talking about James Corden. Thank you so much. I've been Cheng.
Thank you so much, Ken. We move on now to our final speaker, and the final speaker on site opposition, Meg Coslett. Meg is a second year. She studies education with drama and English at Homerton College and has just completed the international tour with the Footlights. Meg, the floor is yours.
Mr. Speaker, members of the jury, fuck, that's loud. I would first like to examine why tonight's motion, this House believes the world is beyond parody, is deeply flawed by stating the bleeding obvious. We are not in a house. Glad the tone's been set for the rest of my material. I don't know about you, but my house is a red brick new build in South Wales, not a student-run debating chamber that was founded in 1815, making it the oldest continuously running debating society in the world, and has hosted a range of guest speakers from His Holiness the Dalai Lama to Katie Price. Yes, I have read the Wikipedia page, and to be frank, it is the largest volume of academic reading I've done this term thus far. Also, I do hope you can recognise that I'm trying to pad out as much of this as possible, as I don't know what I'm going to say. In all seriousness, though, I do disagree with the motion, which was very unfortunate, as I was only asked a couple of days ago to do this. Somebody, I think, I know someone has dropped out. I've been told several times I'm a replacement. It's like being with my dad. Anyway, I, myself, me, Meg Coslett, Moog to my friends, the scabby girl with flaky skin to my GP, has grown up with a fascination for and an adoration of satire. Now, I know what you're thinking, but you, yourself, Meg Coslett, Moog to your friends and the girl with flaky skin to your GP, how the flippin' heck did you make the assumption? Yes, that is a new fusion word I have been working on. It describes what it means to make quite a substantial assumptive jump. Assumption. Think about it. Think about it. Yeah? Good. Get on board with it now because it is here to stay. This is no fetch, and I am no Gretchen Wieners. You're welcome, Ken. That was a very good way of gauging who actually likes Mean Girls in the room. Anyway, I digress. Flaky skin girl! How the fuck fuck did you make the assumption that parody means satire? Well, I'm very glad you asked. The lines between parody and satire can often be blurred. In a little book you might have heard of called The Dictionary, to parody something is defined as producing a humorously exaggerated imitation of a writer, artist, or genre, whereas to satirize something is said to be the use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose or criticize people's stupidity and vices, particularly, and here's the important difference, in the context of contemporary politics or other topical issues. The concept of a parody has always intrigued me. I think I first became aware of what a parody was when I realized that the Charles Darwin natural selection song from Horrible Histories sounded a lot like David Bowie's Changes. You know, like the end chorus of Changes goes like, time can't change me, but I can change time. And then the end of the chorus in the Charles Darwin natural selection song goes like, natural selection. It's a similar cadence. And then I made the assumption that someone somewhere must be being made fun of. My mother often says to me, Megan, you're becoming a parody of yourself, to which I always reply, Leslie, and that's my mother's name, spelled L-E-S-L-E-Y, not L-E-S-L-I-E. Get it right on the Christmas card, she's a very precious woman. Leslie, I would say, if you call lying naked under my double duvet at 3 p.m. with a £20 worth of Nando's Deliveroo in my lap, despite having told my boyfriend I'm vegetarian now, and combating the secret meat feast adrenaline high by belting Barbara Streisand, procrastinating over an overdue essay, and drinking Co-op House White Zinfandel from a mug, leaving my den only to piss in my sink, and having an overwhelming feeling of relief when I realised that the scabs I thought on my legs in the dark are actually melted dairy milk buttons. If you call that becoming a parody of myself, Mother, I say fine, but I call it a very nice Wednesday afternoon. The idea that you can become a parody of yourself cements the idea that nothing is beyond parody, surely? I mean, as individuals, we're self-aware enough to recognize our quirks and mannerisms, our vices and our flaws, and exaggerate them in a, yeah, that is vintage me, TBH, what am I like, kind of way. And I really like that. I really like that nothing is beyond the realm of being made fun of. Moreover, if you'd like your minds blown wide open, strap yourself in, boyos, because I'd like to point out that comedian, and I use the word comedian in very loose terms here, comedian and singer-songwriter Riadal Yankovic, the mastermind behind such songs as Michael Jackson spoof Eat It and Avril Lavigne knockoff Constipated, has himself been made a parody of. A man who spends his life making parodies has been made a parody of by someone who chooses to parody those who parody, causing parodyception, if you will. So satire is really just a form of parody with a particular focus on the political, yeah? Personally, I grew up on a diet of, albeit outdated, satire. I would watch old episodes of Not the 9 O'Clock News, The New Statesman, Yes, Prime Minister, The Day Today, and Spitting Image on Gold. And then when I was old enough, I'd become hooked on panel shows like Have I Got News for You and Mock the Week, especially the latter, as I used to have a very weird crush on Hugh Dennis. I just think it was something about deadpan delivery and a high collar. Anyway, satire can be found everywhere, and I mean everywhere. It's been around for a long old time. Clearly not Hugh Dennis fans in the audience. It's been around for a long old time, dating back to Roman poets Horace and Juvenal, whose writings in some way, shape, or form have resulted in us having novels like 1984, A Clockwork Orange, Lord of the Flies, Brave New World, Catch-22. I could go on for hours. And all of these are books that have been taught in Key Stage 3 or Key Stage 4 in the curriculum in the UK. Satire and parody is being taught in our schools, for God's sake. How can we say the world is beyond something that is being analysed and thought about by children? Satire has become ingrained into the British consciousness. Prolific British cartoonist George Cruikshank drew grotesque depictions of the upper echelons of society to highlight injustices of the Corn Laws and widespread poverty in Victorian England. Charlie Brooker writes hour-long cinematic masterpieces that mostly ridicule the attributes and attitudes of normal everyday people in the form of Black Mirror. Well, all right, the episode in black and white was a bit shit, but the one with the webcam was really good and made me cover up my own webcam with blue tack and a plaster and then some electrical tape because I wank a lot. even Chaucer poked fun at the religious and rigid social stereotypes of medieval England in the Canterbury Tales. Throughout history, you can see that wherever times are scary and it seems like there is always someone or something bigger and scarier than you, satire and parody have been paramount in making a mass of people feel better and realize, no, this is ridiculous and needs to be made fun of in order to be less threatening. It's sort of like saying, if you don't laugh, you'll cry, which is what I say on a daily basis when confronted by all the unfinished work and unopened emails I have. Because if I don't laugh at what an unorganized and messy bitch I am, then I will actually sob for days. Tom Lehrer, who is hailed as the most brilliant song satirist ever recorded, said in a Guardian interview that political satire became obsolete when Henry Kissinger was awarded the Nobel Prize. And I cannot help but massively disagree. Satire and parody will never be obsolete, as I think that British people love satire because we love punching upwards. We like it when the joke is at the expense of someone or an establishment which makes our life hard and maybe secretly makes us feel a bit scared. And let's face it, the way things are going at the moment, I doubt things are going to get any less scary. Which is why we cannot possibly render the world beyond parody. We've got to keep punching upward. We've got to keep ridiculing the deplorable, even if at times we wince at the truth in our jokes. We have got to keep shouting, hey, you're really stupid for calling that snap election and having a boogie into the Tory party conference, you cow, and I'm going to make fun of you for it. Or, hey, the things you've been saying about guns and innocent people dying are stupid, and I'm going to make fun of it for you backward, misogynistic, racist, homophobic, puny cock, straw-head, what's-it-coloured scrotum of a man. We have to keep shouting at the top of our lungs and never stop, or else you lose. Or else we lose, because laughter is our medicine and satire and parody are our weapons. And that is why it is not a question of saying the world is beyond parody. It is saying that the world could not ever be and must not ever be beyond parody. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Meg, and thank you to all of our speakers today. I found it really fun, and hopefully all the members did as well. Just a few thank yous to other people. Thanks to stewards, as ever, AV. Or hopefully all of you know now the amazing offer. If you're a steward, you get your free panino. You get your £5 bar tab. It's brilliant. Definitely would recommend it. Thanks to Alicia, who subbed in today to be the secretary because everyone else has gone off to Oxford. Which is probably a sign of how things are going. A few points, members discounts. So just to notify you a few of these. So there is the £5 burrito Sundays at Nana Mexico. So, you know, you get the burrito Mondays. If you've got a union card, you get the £5 deal on a Sunday. You also have 10% off at Gardy's. So just to let you know all these things. And in terms of our speakers and our events for the week to come, it's a very, really busy week. We've obviously got Jordan Peterson coming tomorrow. The queuing for that will start at 5:30 if you haven't got a ticket already, and details will be provided on our Facebook feed. A special announcement, I've just had it through, we can confirm this, that next Tuesday at 5 p.m, Manny Pacquiao, the boxer, is going to be speaking. That is before the special relationship debate, which is going to start either 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and that is involving Emily Thornberry, Vince Cable, Bernard Cazeneuve, and Secretary Jay Johnson. We also have another debate on Thursday, which is light-hearted. This House believes debates haven't convinced anyone of anything, and that features Ken Clark, Michael Howard, and two other eminent conservatives who are coming back because we're presenting Ken Clark's photo in here. We also have auditions open for speakers in both of those debates, and they will be publicised on our Facebook feed. So we better carry on and do the vote. So as ever at the Union, we vote with our feet. The motion before the House is this House believes that the world is beyond parody. If you agree with that, you can go through the ayes, which are the door on my right. If you disagree, you can go for the noes, which are the door on my left. And if you want to abstain, it's the central door. Once again, the world is beyond parody. Thank you so much for our speakers, and thanks for all of you for coming.